What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down yet another NASCAR playoff race, it's Brian Twining. Brian Twining, are you ready to talk some YellaWood 500 at Talladega?
Oh man, boy, am I ready! How apropos is it that they named this thing the YellaWood 500 at Dega? Like, not to be stereotypical or anything, but this is just like the most perfect name for a race in the Deep South.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. We still got a Angle of Pursuit 500 coming, even if it's an Xfinity race. Brian, normally we start inside 10-1. This weekend we don't have, we don't have 10-1. We have Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Danny Hamlin, Joey Logano all at 10, Brad Keselowski at 11, Kevin Harvick at 13. Before we kind of get into the next range and some guys that we like, is there anybody else in there that even garners some interest from you?
Well, I'm going to go back to a name that if you've been watching our pod for this NASCAR season, everyone should be very familiar with, and that's our boy Eric Almirola. Like, we have a handful of guys that we've kind of favorited this year, and he's one of them. He went through a stretch where he saw something like 10 consecutive top 10 finishes or top 5 finishes or something like that. You know, he kind of fell off a little bit, but in 3 of the 4 playoff races right now, Almirola has kind of returned to form. He's got top 10 finishes in 3 of the 4. His last 8 races at Talladega have all been top 10s. 5 of the last 8 have been top 5. Like, this guy, he does really well at this track. And for somebody who's sitting below that cut line after the next 2 races, like, this is the track where he could kind of right himself, hopefully sneak up and get that victory, which gives him the automatic pass through into the round of 8. And I think that this is as good a chance as any for Almirola here, as he's starting 11th. So if you're looking at DFS, like, that's also a good starting point for a guy who's been finishing in the top 5 here consistently for spots moved up. And on top of that, also one more thing to kind of account for is the fact that 2 of his teammates who are also starting in the top 11 of Clint Bowyer and Kevin Harvick are all Stewart-Haas Racing, and they're all 3 of them are within this playoff race here, and you could see all 3 of these guys kind of work together to move each other up into the front of the grid here to maintain points and move up into the standings.
Yeah, there's a bunch of interesting names inside that like 15-1 range. There's 2 guys for me. Denny Hamlin obviously gets some interest just because he's starting on the pole. He's running so well. And at this track has had success. Like, in his last 7, his 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 6 top 20s, led a bunch of laps and just, has familiarity at this track, but has also kind of seems to be peaking at the right time and running really well. And, has the pole leading number 1. So it garners some interest. I also like Joey Logano, and I know you hate doing that, but at 10-1, garners a little interest.
I almost went there, but nope.
Has a win, 4 top 5s in his last 7. Feels like a guy that I would either bet to win or not bet at all. I feel like he's going to run really well and win, or he's going to crash and kill everything I said about him. So both those guys garner my interest. I'm 100% with you on Almirola. I love that bet. It's really funny. I feel like this episode is going to feel like a trip down memory lane for those that you started from the beginning, because we're kind of getting back to some familiar names. But Almirola, yeah, I mean that jumped off the board. Even if his recent results aren't quite where we want it to be. Let's keep the trip going and talk Eric Jones, 40-1.
Yeah, Eric Jones is a guy who we've another one, like you said, like we're going back to the originals here, like to the original gangsters. Jones lost his job, late in the season, so he knew that he doesn't have a driving role next year for any team. We've talked about that before. He's kind of been up and down. He's been pretty disappointing this season, to be honest with you, but he's another one. Since the playoffs have begun, like, he's 3 of his 4 races have been in the top 10. He's got 2 top 5s in the last 4 races. He's finished 5th here in June at Talladega. This isn't a track that he has traditionally had success at, but again, at a track with the possibility of the big one or multiple big ones. Anybody who has any sort of success here, or especially people who are going to be driving aggressively to secure a job in the future, like what is more motivating than somebody trying to race for their livelihood? I think that's really going to factor into his success level here. He's starting in the middle of the pack at about 16th, so another person I really like when I'm making a DFS lineup. And, I just think that the fact, again, just going back to this, I'm going to keep harking on this, that this guy doesn't have a contract for next year. Like, I could see him being one of those drivers that goes and is like the Intimidator used to be, and just bumping people into the wall, like just trying to move up the track any way possible, like catching everybody's tail in to spin them out just to move up into the standings here.
Alex Bowman is somebody that garnered a little interest from me. Guy that you liked last week, had a great race, ended up finishing top 3, I believe. I would suggest avoiding him this week. His price at 16-1 feels pretty aggressive, and going back through his history at this track, he is a guy that does great in the spring and terrible come fall. Starting back in 2016, his October race, 33rd and 36th. The May race was 16th. Going into 18, he had an 8th place finish in April, a 33rd in October. In 19, he got 2nd in April and 37th in October. They obviously had a little bit of different schedule this year. They ran the race in June, got 7th. What's going to come? A bottom 30. I would avoid him in DFS. I would avoid him on the betting board, and especially at his price, 14-1. Like, I'd rather jump up or wait, no, where is he? He's 16-1. I'd rather jump up and grab our boy Almirola, or go down a little bit lower. Brian, you're probably gonna think I'm crazy for this one too, but Ricky Stenhouse is garnering some interest again. And you think after last week I'd learned my lesson, but like, he does really well.
He does really good at the super speedways.
And he's priced like it. He's priced at 20-1 this week, and you think, why is he up there? He shouldn't be up there. He's not in the caliber of these guys. But that's sometimes a clue that maybe we should be looking at him a little more. I mean, this is the race where he finished 2nd last year, I believe, or this season. I believe this is the one where Almirola finished the race backwards.
Yes,
right?
Yes. So,
yeah. So Stenhouse is a guy who's 1, 2, 3, 4 top 10s and 3 top 5s over his last 5. He won back in 17. Obviously, he's on JTG Doherty Racing now. Brad Doherty, former NBA guy, runs that team. Left Roush Fenway, different car, different setup, different everything, but same results. He's somebody that I don't know that I love taking him at 20, but like a 550 for a top 3, I know it's not going to feel great compared to like the 100-1 he was last week. But when guys have so much familiarity and a history of success at a certain track, there's their numbers shifts dramatically from what you're expected to seeing. It does catch my eye a little bit and saying, maybe I should look into this more. Maybe I should be a little more willing to jump in, because that is a great number for a guy who's performed as well at this track as he has.
Yeah, Stenhouse was a guy who I was also looking at, but I was kind of soured by last week's selection, and then him just he did not put up the numbers that we thought. And nope. Kind of going back to what I said about Eric Jones, I think it's very, very similar to the way that Stenhouse drives. He's kind of known on the circuit as a guy who will be aggressive. Like, he'll grind on these drivers. He'll bump people more often than what is kind of acceptable in the circuit. But it's interesting that the number is where it is for a guy who hasn't raced very well this year, but he's so good at these tracks. And if you're going to follow the numbers, like when you're looking at betting, Vegas knows something that we don't know.
Yep.
And, I'm going to look at that as a great value for even a potential winner here.
Yeah, I try to bet numbers, not drivers, not teams. And that it garners, it catches my eye. I don't know that I'm going to go crazy and blow my whole bankroll on it, but I will probably throw a few shekels that way. Let's dive way down the board for one of your favorite traditions of grabbing somebody super low, and Ryan Preece, 80-1. Talk to me, sell me on this guy.
Well, his last 4 races since the playoffs started. I know I keep saying that, but I know that there's probably some drivers who have kind of packed it in for the season and stuff like that, but Ryan Preece is not one of those guys. This is his best 4-race stretch of the year. He's finished top 20 in all 4 of these, the last 4. He finished 9th 2 weeks ago at Bristol. He's had 3 career Cup Series races here. All were top 20, and his one Xfinity race here, I think, was a 15th place finish. And last year in the spring race, he finished 3rd at Talladega. So if we're looking at a guy who has the potential to kind of break the bank for you, who's a just tremendous long shot, I'm looking at a guy like Ryan Preece, who traditionally he started in the 30th to 31st position here at this track, and this week he's getting a 25th place start. So in terms of DFS or in terms of a potential top 10, which is 3.5 to 1 right now, like the odds are there for him to potentially move up the track in that way, especially if he's able to avoid the big accident or the big one, which we all know will occur during this race. And like for me, I'll be putting some units on the top 10 here with this guy as a potential to kind of have his best race at a track where he's traditionally done okay to good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're diving the slow, there's obviously a reason why they're priced at where they're priced. So without further ado, Brian, hit me with your YellaWood 500 best bet.
Oh man, last week I hit it, so I'm feeling pretty good, and I don't like playing it safe, so we're gonna get crazy here, and I'm gonna go Eric Jones, top 3 at 10-1. Let's go.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. I understand where this is coming from. I've had this success followed by a blow up in my face following week. So good luck. I won't be on that with you, but good luck. I'm going with an Eric, but this time Almirola for a top 3 at plus 450. Like
that just seems like stealing.
The 14s obviously be nice, but give me plus 450. Give me a little bit of wiggle room, and let's cash some tickets. So Eric Jones, Eric Almirola, the Eric's podcast for Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the race at Talladega, and we'll talk to you guys next week.